Politix podcast. Hello and welcome to my first episode of the Politix podcast. My name is Amanda Gallagher and I'll be bringing you all the latest news from X that you won't see on RTE or the mainstream media. I meet many people and you have conversations about what's going on in the country, and they're just not up to speed and they're just not fully formed. And I think it's because they are not on social media. These people are most probably RTE watchers, RTE News, The Late Late Show, Katie Hannon, Upfront with Katie Hannon, and read the mainstream media. And to that end, they are just not fully informed, which is very sad, because how can they get the true picture if they're not fully informed? So that's the reason I set up the podcast. Each episode, I'll be bringing you a couple of items from X that you would see that you just won't see on RTE. And for those of you who don't know, X is a social media platform, a news platform, which is very, very easily to download and to put onto your phone. It's a free app. You'll meet brilliant people and you'll get very well informed. And I'm going to be here bringing you all the news from X. If you don't feel like setting up an account now, I hope you do in the future. But in the meantime, like I said, I will be here. And it's basically just news by the people, for the people. That's all it is. Unedited truth, news by the people, for the people. And the first thing I'm going to talk about on this first episode is immigration. And Carol Nolan, TD, calls it the immigration industrial complex into Ireland. And you wouldn't see that on RTE, but that's exactly what it is. It's an industrial complex. It is massive and it involves billions and billions of euro of Irish taxpayers' money. And the ordinary Joe Soap on the street doesn't really know the extent of it. So I'm going to touch on a couple of stories. It's a complex really of secrecy, secret contracts worth millions and billions, and no transparency and secrecy. When the communities are looking for answers, there are no answers. So two I'm going to touch on. One is the Monaghan GAA manager, Seamus McEnany, and his family. They have received €130 million in state contracts to house international protection applicants, I think in the Monaghan area. And that's just one. And you won't see that on RTE. And you just won't, ordinary man on the street wouldn't know that. They think that the international protection centres are run, possibly government owned and run by the government. But no, it's ordinary people on the street that you would pass on the street, like this GAA manager Seamus McEnany and his family, who have received €130 million in state contracts to house international protection applicants. And some would say that's just business. But there is a big but. When the local community are looking for answers, when the local community are distressed, that's where it all falls into place. And I'm going to play you a little clip of a meeting that took place in Carrickmacross a couple of weeks ago, called by the Sinn Féin TD, Matt Carthy, of the local community in Carrickmacross, who have simply had enough, who are looking for answers, and they are not getting the answers they deserve to get. These people have to live in the town and they're looking for answers. So I will give you just a short 1-minute clip of a lady talking very passionately in Carrickmacross.
And it's not fair on our grandkids that's growing up now. There's going to be nothing in this town, and this town is dead. Oh, Matt, sorry. You grew up in this town the same time I did. We all went to the Fiddlers, we all went everywhere. There wasn't that much fighting, apart from you sorted it out yourself. But I lived in Claw Valley and was not afraid to walk from the town down to Claw Valley on my own, 2-3 o'clock in the morning. You can't walk from the top of the town to the bottom of the town now. And as I say, it's my grandchildren, everybody else's grandchildren here that's going to be affected. The Irish people in this country is entitled to nothing, but yet people can come in. There's an awful lot of people in this country that needs medical cards, that's paying their taxes and everything else, but they're not entitled. The money is being thrown out ridiculously. Wasted, totally wasted. And as somebody else said, we go to another country. We respect their rules. And we do not get handed a penny for nothing. And it is our government that's destroying us. And this word racist is a joke. Because it's our government that has us feeling the way we feel today.
So you hear that woman speaking so passionately in that meeting in Carrickmacross, and the meeting was called, like I said, by the Sinn Féin TD, Matt Carthy. He's furiously taking notes there, and I watched the whole video. He had a little speech at the beginning, but for the rest of the time, he didn't address the people's concerns or queries. He just took the notes. So I'm sure the people of Carrickmacross are looking to see what he is going to do when he formulates those notes. But that lady speaks so passionately. She mentions that the Irish went everywhere, and of course they did. And this is the excuse that the media and politicians and our government keep saying, but the Irish went everywhere. Yes, the Irish went everywhere, but they didn't receive luxury flats and car engines, and they didn't get to spend €1 million to bring their pets over, and they didn't get free GP clinics. As that lady said, there are many in Ireland who would like a medical card, and they might be a few euro over, and they get denied by the means test. So this is what these people are seeing. This is what these people have awoken to. And as she said, it's not fair. And as she said, it's the children and the grandchildren in the future that will have to live with everything. So that is Carrickmacross. And as I say, Sinn Féin called a meeting, and who knows what will become of that meeting and of the concerns of those people. And she also said that she used to walk home at 2 and 3 in the morning in Ireland, totally safe, as we all did. All the young ladies of Ireland used to walk home at 2 and 3 in the morning on their own, myself included. Now that doesn't happen. I know for a fact it doesn't happen, and it won't happen, and it will continue to not happen in the future. And that's the state of play in Ireland at the minute. So that is Carrickmacross. That I was brought along to Carrickmacross there because I spoke of Seamus McEnany, the Gaelic manager for the Monaghan team, and his family in receipt of €130 million in state contracts to house international protection applicants. But in tandem with that, then the town of Carrickmacross is in meltdown. And I do not think that Seamus McEnany was at that meeting. I do not think that he has addressed concerns of the local community either. And it's his responsibility also to address the concerns. So that's Carrickmacross. Now, on X, I also found out that you didn't see on RTE, that another man who is in receipt of €5 million in state contracts to house international protection applicants is the former Senator and Vice President of Fianna Fáil, Mr. Donny Cassidy. So that's another man that the ordinary Joe Soap on the street wouldn't know has a contract. A Fianna Fáil top man behind the scenes has a state contract worth €5 million. So they're the type of things that the ordinary person doesn't hear on RTE. And I would think that RTE should be doing some sort of programme on all these contracts that have been awarded. All of these contracts, it deserves an RTE Primetime Investigates programme all for itself, because it's monumental. €4.3 billion has been spent so far on international protection, accommodation and services in Ireland over the past few years. And there is another figure of €205,000 per hour, 24/7. Last year, I don't know what this year's figures will be. I presume they're going to rise, but that's €205,000 per year spent on the accommodation, the international protection accommodation. That's a house an hour, 24/7, a house an hour for the young Irish people who are looking out their windows of their parents' box rooms, seeing cranes towering over towns, and the only construction going on is these centres. I have one in my hometown here in Sligo, Globe House. Luxury, beautiful apartments being built, not for the young people of Sligo. And it's happening in Clonmel. There's a massive construction site going on. So I presume that €205,000 per hour spent will rise in 2025. And I only know all these figures because I'm on X. I don't see them. Why do we not see them on the front of the paper or on the RT News at night? We don't see those figures. So that is Mr. Donny Cassidy, the ex-vice president of Fianna Fáil. He is a very lucky man to be awarded the €5 million, and so is the Gaelic manager, Seamus McEnany, and his family to be awarded €130 million in state contracts. All very, very lucky. And you wonder, there's not a tender process, as far as I know, for these contracts. So you would wonder how they come across them and how they are awarded them. That is another, as I said, an RTE Primetime Investigates show would do very well in informing the nation of these massive contracts that they are oblivious to. If they're not on X, they are really oblivious to the massive amount of money going to these contracts. And there's another one I will speak of now, which is Dundrum House Hotel in Tipperary, the small village of Dundrum. The locals there are in disarray. The locals there are holding protests because their only hotel in the little village has been earmarked for an international protection centre. But the cherry on the cake there is that there is only 217 residents, according to the last 2022 census of Ireland, 217 residents in this local village, and the government, in all their wisdom and all their advisors, have advised them that the best thing to do there in the village of Dundrum is to put 277 international protection applicants into that beautiful hotel. So the maths doesn't work out. It doesn't work out to me. It mustn't work out to the people of Dundrum. And to yourselves, when you hear that, I don't think the maths works out there, and I don't think it's fair on the village to put 277 people overnight in one fell swoop, as I'm going to play you now a little clip of somebody saying that, but 277 strangers, basically, strangers into a village of 217 residents. The maths does not add up. And I'm going to play you a clip of Ezra Levant from Rebel News, which is a very good news site in Canada, I believe. Let him tell you about what his views are on the Dundrum House Hotel.
I like to travel to other countries to see what it's like there. Let me tell you a very short story from the little village of Dundrum, Ireland. It's a village of 200 people. It's the prettiest place you ever see in your life. And there's one sort of hotel country club in town where everyone goes for their secular life events. Gorgeous. 200 people in the whole town. And then one day the hotel signs a deal with the federal government. It's not going to be a hotel and country club anymore. It's going to take 240 military-aged migrant men. So they shut down the tourism, shut down the social hub of the town, and in one fell swoop, the Irish are now a minority in Dundrum.
That's wild.
Who are these men? How long are they staying? All this is secret. It's the most astonishing thing. And who's pushing for this? U.S.-funded NGOs. There's over 100,000 in this tiny island of Ireland with 5 million souls. And I say again, why is that interesting?
Okay, so you hear what he says there. Astonishing. Secrecy. He has the figure wrong. It's not 240, it's 277. So that is where we are at. And of course, the people of Dundrum have had no satisfactory answers as of yet. And they would love to speak to the owner of the hotel and the person who is in receipt of the state contract, worth €20 million. So it's €20 million for the Dundrum House Hotel contract. And the person they need to speak to is a lady in Spain. She lives in a tiny apartment in Spain by all accounts. And she only set up the company in January 2025 and was awarded very soon after this contract worth 20 million. So another lady who's extremely lucky. And we would wonder how she saw that all the way over in Spain. The ordinary person doesn't come across this luck. So, and the ordinary people of Dundrum would love to speak to that lady and express to her their concerns and their worries in their little village. So they are the type of contracts that we're talking about. And I've just touched on 3 of them there. There are tons of them. They are worth millions. That is Seamus McEnany and his family, 130 million. The little secret Spanish señorita in Spain, 20 million. And Donny Cassidy, the former vice president and senator of Fianna Fáil, €5 million contract. As I said, that's only 3 I have touched on. And I would not have known any of that if I were not on X, because when you turn on RT News or turn on RT Radio 1 at 1 o'clock, should be headline news, in my opinion, because the ordinary person is clueless when it comes to the type of vast amounts of money. As I said, luxury apartments going up, beautiful lounge furniture, all these trappings, food, all for people coming into the country who our government have told us are 80% or the majority economic migrants, and the majority come in with no passports and no documentation, and they get to live in these beautiful places while there's 15,000 homeless in the country, including, I think it's up to 5,000 children homeless in the country. There are the hidden homeless, which are the 20-something-year-olds still in their childhood bedrooms, looking out the window at nothing being built for them. And it is very, very sad. So it has to change. And the government don't address it, the media don't address it. There's silence from all quarters, and hopefully people do get educated and contact their politicians about it, because it's just not on. Now, the last place I will speak of is, by the way, Ezra Levant, going back to the Rebel News, there have been many protests in Ireland. And there were 2 national ones in particular that Rebel News attended. The last one, I think, last May. And there was one on the 26th of April, a few weeks ago. And I was there myself. I was in the middle of it, which had 50,000 people there. And you didn't hear much on RT. That should be headline news. But funny enough, Rebel News got to interview the speakers and the organisers of the protest. So that was Malachy Steenson and Gavin Pepper. And it's funny that Rebel News gave them an interview, and the viewers of Rebel News and those on social media got to hear what the day was all about, what the protest was all about. And there you have RTE News, who didn't interview the speakers. They touched on it, but they didn't interview the speakers. And that is a tragedy for the country, or for the majority of people who are not on social media, that they couldn't hear what these leaders were saying, or what the message was. And also on top of that, GB News and Sky News Australia have covered all the protests and are fully informed their viewers. So there are people in Australia and England and Canada more informed about what's going on in Ireland than the ordinary Irish person who listens to RT News and reads the mainstream media here. So they talk an awful lot about misinformation and disinformation, and I would like to ask them about missed information. There's so much missed information for the people on the street, and that has to change. And that is why I set up this podcast, to maybe help a little bit from viewers who might get a little grasp of what actually is going on, like those contracts worth such vast amounts of money. While this country is in a housing crisis, there is no houses being built for the Irish people, like I said, and for the homeless, nothing. And then you see massive, massive construction going on and the money being spent on it. Now, the last place I will speak about today is Bundoran, who also were out in protest and are also anxious and are worried, the community of Bundoran. Now, Bundoran is a seaside village in the county of Donegal, very near where I am here in Sligo. And I spent many, many childhoods in Bundoran with my cousins and uncles and family, and especially in the arcade games. I remember putting pennies in the machines. And funnily enough, the owner of those arcade centres and the owner of the hotel, the big hotel, Allingham Arms Hotel in Bundoran, is also one of these landlords we're talking about who would be awarded state contracts for housing international protection applicants. And the one that has got the Bundoran people out now asking questions is the Viscount B&B Bed and Breakfast in Bundoran. So the locals have got together now. the bed and breakfast is to be used for international protection applicants, and the locals have simply had enough. They've done their share and they've had enough, and they have serious, serious questions for the government, for the politicians, and for the landlord of this premises. So the protesters got together one Friday night a couple of weeks ago, and I watched the video, and you can hear that video yourself on YouTube. Just type in Bundoran protest and you will get that. And the leader speaks so eloquently, and there are a number of speakers from the crowd, concerned parents, elderly, just people who have queries and concerns. And then 2 days later, they met again because they got no joy and no one came back to them. And they protested, walked along to the local Sinn Féin councillor's office, Mick McMahon, whose office is joined to his home. So they always tell us, of course, we don't condone anyone going near anybody's home or any politician's home. They always say protest at the Dáil, protest at the constituency office, or protest at the department office of where you are protesting. So they, of course, did like they were told and went to the constituency office of this local councillor. He's a Sinn Féin councillor who is the largest opposition party in Ireland. And when they got there, there was no joy. He wasn't there, but his family and his wife were there. And his wife came out and had a to and fro with the protesters and went back in. But the next morning, and you can also see that video on YouTube, if you type in, once again, Bundoran protests, it will come up for you. And I suggest you play those videos and listen to them for yourselves. So the next day, obviously, the protesters were dragged through the mud, as always, and called every name under the sun by media and radio stations. And I listened to a local radio station who had this councillor on telling of his terrible, frightening experience of his family and of intimidation. And they also had on, of the protesters coming, they also had on the TDs, the Sinn Féin, two Sinn Féin TDs, Pearse Doherty and Martin Kenny, who both were on, astonishingly enough, along with the councillor. They were both on the same show, all three of them, whinging and whining about a campaign of intimidation against Sinn Féin. And it's absolutely astounding to hear that, to hear these grown men basically saying there's a campaign against Sinn Féin in the country. They are trying to say, that, and the ordinary man and woman listening to the radio would actually believe them, they are trying to say that all the people that have protested about immigration in Ireland over the past few years are basically launching a campaign against Sinn Féin. And that sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory. Sinn Féin, there is no campaign against Sinn Féin, but Sinn Féin need to understand that people are angry with Sinn Féin, and people do put up posters or chant things against Sinn Féin for one simple reason. Sinn Féin have been utterly useless to the people of Ireland on the immigration issue. Absolutely useless. In fact, they have been worse than useless, because the national protest that took place on the 26th of April, which I was there and saw with my own two eyes, where 50,000 people, Irish people, local communities got together and walked along O'Connell Street and past the GPO. And shockingly enough, Sinn Féin counter-protested those Irish people. So Sinn Féin were in the counter-protest of a few hundred people against 50,000 Irish people, holding signs with the paid NGOs of the day. So there was a counter-protest against the people, and Sinn Féin were in the middle of it. So this is where Sinn Féin are going wrong all the time. Their leader 2 years ago, the East Wall Said No group, got together. They were worried about a planned centre, and they were out in all sorts of terrible weather in the winter, in dark winter nights. The whole community were out, and they asked to speak to the leader of Sinn Féin, which is her constituency now. This was her turf, East Wall in Dublin, and there was no joy. This is where this all started. Mary Lou McDonald did not come and address the concerns of the local community of East Wall. And that is where all this started. And Sinn Féin have to stop whining on the radio and start realising where it has all gone wrong. So that's Mary Lou McDonald. Didn't meet the leaders of Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin were in the counter-protest only a few weeks ago. Mary Lou McDonald said on a radio show that no community has a veto. No community has a say when it comes to these centres. So I would like her to go to those poor people in the Dundrum village, the 217 people who are about to have 277 people in their community. And Mary Lou McDonald would say to those faces that they have no veto, they have no say, which is absolutely shocking and outrageous. And this now is the opposition party, opposition in Ireland. And it's been utterly useless. On this issue, Sinn Féin have been utterly useless. Mary Lou McDonald also came on the radio and said you cannot limit numbers coming into the country, which is astonishing. This is the opposition party of Ireland telling the Irish people in a housing crisis, when there is no houses and there's 15,000 homeless already and there's nothing for the 20-something-year-olds who are leaving in their droves, having to emigrate because they see no future. When there's no homes being built, there is no future for these 20-something-year-olds. And Mary Lou McDonald and Sinn Féin are telling those poor people and all the homeless that you cannot limit more people coming into the country, which is absolutely astounding and shocking. But it's not only Sinn Féin that are in the bad books. It's people before profit who haven't stood with the ordinary Irish people either. Social Democrats, Labour and many independents. So it's not just Sinn Féin, but it seems to be Sinn Féin are using this as a way of trying to garner sympathy from the country when it's very, very simple. Whatever advisors Sinn Féin have and whatever advisors the government have and whatever advisors all the other opposition parties have, they are telling you the total opposite of what actually is the feeling among ordinary Irish people, or the majority of ordinary Irish people. So that is probably where I'm going to leave it today. Just to reiterate to Sinn Féin that to not be coming on the radio and turning blame on ordinary protesters, ordinary people in the village of Bundoran or wherever they are, the village of Carrickmacross, the town of Carrickmacross, do not be coming on the radio and blaming them for the failings of yourselves when it has come to this issue. And that's my only advice to Sinn Féin and to all the parties and to the government. Whoever's advising ye on the issue of immigration is advising ye wrong. So that's where I'm going to leave it. As I said, RTE, they only tell the small part of the story, because if they didn't, then the ordinary person on the street would know all about Donny Cassidy, Seamus McEnany, and the Spanish señorita in Spain, and they would know exactly how much these people are getting from the Irish taxpayer. As I said, in a housing emergency. It's absolutely shocking, outrageous. And that is why people protest, and that is why local communities meet up and have to do it themselves. Because when they look for their local representative, the local politician who was elected to represent and to deal with their queries, they get no answers. As I said, going back to Bundoran, where they went to that councillor's constituency office and his family came out, they asked the wife asked them why they were there that day. And the protesters said, well, we've tried to get your husband, the local councillor. We've emailed him and we've texted and we've called him and he has not responded. And her reply was, he doesn't have the time. Do you know how busy he is? His only job in that regard, in his capacity as a councillor, his only job is to make time for those local communities. And that was her reaction. So that's where we are at in Ireland. The politicians don't have a clue and don't answer. The media only tell half the truth. And that's it. And that's why people have to do it for themselves. That's why I've set up this podcast. That's why other people have set up podcasts. You have to do it for yourselves because you're not hearing it on the proper places like the mainstream media that you should be hearing it. So I'm going to leave it there today. Thank you for watching. I'm going to be with you on a regular basis. If you liked it, like it. And subscribe, very important. I want to build up the subscriptions and share the video. And I'm very happy that you join me. I'm going to be on a regular basis. And thank you very much. I'm going to sign off now and I will see you on the next one.